Hello, welcome back to Getting Open with me, Andrea Miller. I am so excited to bring you today's show, especially if you are a parent of boys or an auntie or an uncle or a family friend and feel like, oh, my sons don't want to talk to me. Good news, good news. They actually do want to talk to you. This show makes such a cogent case for not only do they want to talk to you, but how you can do so, and even better, how you can build a truly beautiful bond, even, yes, with that ruly teenager. And honestly, the show is so personal to me because, as most of you know, I have a teen and a tween boy. And so, I love this one. Let's get into it. I am super excited to introduce one of my dear friends and colleagues and somebody I admire greatly, Joanna Schroeder.
I'm so excited to be here again that I get to be the guest.
I know, it's so great. Okay, so quick bio. Joanna is a writer, editor, and media critic who is known for her unique perspectives on parenting issues. She has been published in the New York Times, Esquire, the Boston Globe, and many other publications, plus has made multiple big-time media appearances, including Red Table Talks, PBS, NPR, BBC, Fox Nation, and others. She works as a managing editor of the Experts program here at YourTango. And most importantly, today, she is the co-author of the incredible new book, just out today, called Talk to Your Boys, 16 Conversations to Help Tweens and Teens Grow into Confident, Caring Young Men, along with her co-author, Christopher Pepper. Joanna, welcome to Getting Open. I'm so excited. I am obsessed with your book. I know I told you that, but I'm genuinely obsessed. It's so freaking good. Thank you so
much. And I'm so excited that we get to be here today.
Well, totally. As moms of, between us, we have 4 teens, tweens, and Isaac is how old again?
20. He just turned 20. Okay. So I no longer have 2 teenagers.
Yeah.
I now have an adult, real adult.
We're spanning between 12 and 20. But let's just kick off. Well, let me actually say this. What I loved about the book is it is so accessible. It's not dense. I mean, it's just like you can just pluck the bits that you want, and you cover a lot in the 16 conversations. It is so practical and so actionable. And it's like, because you're a mom and, and I think Christopher's input too, the kind of work that he's done, it is so like instant, and it made me feel better as I read it. And so I really wanted to give that shout out of the gate. And there's a ton in there. So I'm going to have to go back and dive even more deeply. But when you think about the number one thing, and you've been talking about particularly raising kids, especially raising boys. This topic is something you've been an expert in for at least a decade. What was surprising to you, or what really stood out to you as you did the research that you think people will be like, whoa, I didn't know that, and I need to know that?
I want to touch on the fact that the book is structured differently than a lot of parenting books because of the fact that you and I both are working moms, okay? The majority of parents, the vast majority of parents in the United States who are raising boys are working parents. And the idea of sitting down and reading 300 pages covered, I don't know about you. I don't do it. Like, I buy these wonderful parenting books and I look in the index for the issues I'm having. And so when I pitched the book, literally the book I wanted to write was, you do not have to read the whole thing. You can pick it up and read one box. That was all I wanted. And so the thing we ask of everybody is you read the communication chapter or skim it. I don't even care if you read it. Skim it so that you know some techniques for talking. And then you can look for what is interesting to you. If you think your son is gay, you can go straight to a section if you think your son wants to date boys, because that is a unique challenge I had never read anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And then, and you've got, like you say, it's like dating and relationships and substance use and mental health. I mean, you make it so easy. And so many books, like they build on each other and you're like, shit, I can't go to like chapter 14 because I didn't read chapters 1 through 13. Yours really is, if it's like, oh my God, my son finally has a girlfriend. Okay, now I need to jump into the dating and relationships one. And it's just honestly so practical. I got to say one other thing, and I promise I'll let you talk. I loved the quotes. Oh my God. And my boys are 12 and 15. I was like, and I'm pals with so many of their friends and I love them. And by the way, you know this, Joanna, they call me Sig Mom.
Yes, exactly.
I love them. And I just, it's like, oh, they're all in my heart. And so
we had a panel of 85 boys, ages 10 to 23, which 23 is not a boy. But when you read through, we separated the quotes out because so many people who were reading the early drafts were like, I like this that the boys are saying. We asked them what we should talk about, and then we shared their quotes, their experiences. And it was really beautiful to read the different answers from our 10-year-old to our 22 or 23-year-old James. And the 10-year-old mostly was focused on being able to play more video games and eat more candy. And as a mom, that's where we are. And the 23-year-old was really looking back at what he believed his parents could have done differently to make him feel more secure. But he's not so far away from it that he's already thinking like a dad. And we were blown away. Like we really started to love these kids.
Well, totally. And honestly, I want to come back and read a couple of my favorites. But back to, but I interrupted you because you were talking about sort of what either surprised you or you just felt like, oh, I just want parents to know this thing.
The biggest thing is that there's so many big things, but
we'll get to a whole bunch of them. I promise.
Our boys really want to talk to us. That's what we learned. We learned that through our research. We've learned that through our own parenting, and we learned that through our boys panel. And they often don't know how to start a conversation. They're really afraid that they're going to say something that's going to get them in trouble or get some of their privileges taken away. And so what we learned was, you have to be willing to talk when your kid wants to talk. And we shared some really specific insights from what we've learned from the boys around us about how to know when that is. It's not when you think it is. It's usually like, one example is 9 p.m. You're getting ready to go to bed and you notice that the kid is sitting in the doorway and maybe he's on his phone, but he's not in his room and it's 9 p.m. and he's just standing there. That is probably a sign that he's got something to talk to you about. And I didn't know that until our boys and our boys panel told us. And I started realizing it. Or they might start asking questions that seem obvious, like, why do we have so many little tiny spoons? Like there's all these little tiny spoons. And you're like, what are you talking about? But they're kind of lingering in the kitchen, maybe like shutting the drawers a little bit loudly. And you're like, there's a big spoon. That is usually a sign that they're feeling something and they need to talk and they don't even know how to start talking about it. And so they're just saying the first thing that's on their mind. And we've learned that it's sort of that Gottman style. You and I both love the Gottmans, that they have something called bids, that in relationships, if someone says something like, oh, there's a beautiful bird outside, if their partner just goes like, that's a big sign that the marriage is in trouble. Instead, you're just supposed to say, oh, what kind of bird is it? Or I love the birds in this neighborhood, or just anything. And it is exactly the same thing with our kids. So if they're like slamming around in the kitchen, complaining about the spoons are too small, that it's sort of like, oh, that's a bid. He's putting out a bid and I need to respond. Be like, does it seem like there's more little spoons than before? Now you've gotten bigger, maybe.
Yeah, I think of it like playing a tennis game. It's like they're hitting the ball to me and now I have to hit the ball back. Otherwise, you're like looking at the ball rolling by and it's like, all right, lost the ball.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it demands an answer. They're just complaining about the spoons. But it's a bid. Is mom, is dad, is grandma, grandpa really here in this moment with me? Because something feels and I don't know how to ask for advice or start the conversation.
Well, and just to add to what you're saying, you spoke at length with Terry Real, one of the foremost experts on masculinity and male psychology and relationships, and somebody that you and I really adore and admire. And I love the quote. I won't get it exactly right, but he basically, and he's not one to be shy about.
He's not.
Graphic language. He's like, that's when it comes to adolescent boys not wanting to talk, that's bullshit. Right. And so I think there is this, and, you guys do a good job of touching on, as you even just introduced, making sure you're meeting your kid where he is rather than just assuming he doesn't want to talk. And you use this great example of they get home and they're throwing their stuff around and they seem like they're doing nothing. By the way, my husband talks about this. He's like, just because I look like I'm doing nothing, that is not nothing. I'm like, oh my God, I know this. I've heard it. Even if I don't sometimes believe it.
Mm-hmm. And it's especially true with kids because they're doing a different kind of nothing than we are.
Well, right. And to honor that, and I'm going to out myself here a little bit. It's like, as a working mom that has big responsibilities in our family and in my career, it's almost like I'm like the boss lady. It's like, okay, I have time now. And like, let's just get through this. Like, I don't need a ton of your time, but you reminded me, it's like, sharing that respect. I want respect. Like, let me give respect to my kids to say, hey, is now a good time, rather than, geez, you're in the middle of something and I just need 5 minutes, right? I just think that, and that to me, when I think about intentions, I think intentions go a very long way, right? It's like, rather than my intention is just to get the answer, which, as I always say, type AAA Aries, I just want the answer. Like, I just want to get this thing done. Your book is reminding me, it's like, okay, the intention should be, yes, I want to get the thing done, or I want to get the answer or the plan made, but I also want to foster that connection, right? And in a big way, the fostering the connection is way more important than the freaking plan, right? But I forget that, right? Because I just want to make the plan.
The hard thing for me has been to understand that they can be doing something that looks like nothing. Like Sanjay says, it looks like nothing, but they can be doing something that looks like nothing, but it can be profound. And the examples that we found were, sometimes you think they're scrolling social media, and they might be, but sometimes when they're doing that, they might be texting a friend who's experiencing severe depression. They might be having a first conversation with a crush for the first time in their entire development, and it's completely overwhelming. They might be looking up an assignment on their phone in Google Classroom. When I am sitting there like this with my phone on my bed, I tend to be doing nothing, but they do everything on their phones. And so it's sort of like for you or me, when we sit down on our laptops and we're obviously working, sometimes they're working emotional work or literal schoolwork on their phones. My son's been studying for they call it A-Push AP history exam on his phone, because he's got flashcards in there and he watches tutorials for how to write better essays on YouTube. And I kind of was like, you are not studying. And then I laid down next to him on his bed and he was absolutely studying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No,
I thought
that's a tough one
playing
too.
Minecraft.
The disconnect in our generation when we think about, using our phones. So you start with communication as the first topic, and something that you referenced that I just loved: be curious, not furious. And just talk about that, because it can be tough, not going to lie, when you're raising teens and tweens, boys that can get a little hot-headed and be disrespectful. And, in our house, things can get pretty heated pretty fast. And there were so many good takeaways. So talk about the be curious, not furious.
This is a catchphrase that I believe Christopher, my co-author, made up. If not, it's one he uses often in the classroom, in developing his curricula for health education, and with his boys groups, because he leads boys groups in the greater San Francisco area. And what he learned was, when he was met with anger or fury or frustration, there was always something underneath. And the only way to get below that was to be curious. And it feels obvious when you say it, but when you're in that moment and you're met with it is hard not to come back with that.
Rude. I mean, just like rude and disrespectful, when you're like, wait, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And here's the trick. Being curious doesn't mean there aren't consequences for being rude. You're still not allowed to say F off, mom. You're just not. Okay. But instead of reacting with fury, if at all possible, try to set the boundary, establish the consequences, follow through on them, and be curious about what is going on. Almost always, there is something below the surface that they need to talk to you about. And some teenagers are great at talking regardless of gender, but in general, they don't know how to start that conversation. So a few examples would be like, I noticed that you seem like you're having a rough time right now, and I'm really sorry about that. We're going to talk a little bit later about how you slammed the door in my face, because that's not okay. But right now, I'm mostly concerned. Are you feeling okay? Is something going on? And they may then say, Mom, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened at school. It was so embarrassing. Or they might be like, no, nothing. But then you might have that 10 p.m. lingering in the corner thing happen, because instead of pushing them away when they tried to push you away, you very gently invited them to come closer. And then after
that
all
empathy
of that
goes so far, right? Just being, meeting them where they are, being empathetic. And it takes a lot as a parent, like our own work. And, Terry Real talks about that as well, especially for men, right? To be a role model as a man. In fact, there is a great Instagram reel. Should we tee that up right now about how we are? Okay, yeah. Dane, do you have that real quick? Because when I think about what we're teaching our boys now about feelings and expressing themselves, this is just such a beautiful nugget of wisdom that I'm excited to share.
Most heterosexual women are asking for more intimacy from men than we raise boys and men to deliver. Intimate connection is what the human species is designed for, and it's pounded out of our boys. Patriarchy hurts both men and women. The essence of being a man, and is still with us today, is invulnerability. The more invulnerable you are, the more manly you are, the more vulnerable you are, the more girly you are. Guess what? What I say to guys all the time, what you learned as a boy will guarantee that by today's standards, you'll be a lousy husband. Open your heart. Dare to be vulnerable. Dare to be compassionate when your partner has a complaint about you.
Oh my God. I've watched this clip a handful of times and it gets me every time. So Joanna, what do we do as parents to help our boys embrace their vulnerability, to keep their hearts open, and, obviously, to be good husbands, but even more fundamentally, to be comfortable in their own skin and to embrace themselves rather than feeling like they have to reject parts of themselves, leading to violence, leading to depression, leading to all those things that are, very well documented, in this, very common in the patriarchal system.
What Terry's saying here seems to really be on the surface just about relationships. And it is. It's about relationships, how they can become better husbands. But we can't just raise our boys to become better for women or whoever their future partner is. We want our boys to have better lives, because even though it looks like men are on top of the world, and some men are living it up, right? A lot of men are quietly suffering, and we know that boys and men are dying deaths of despair, as they call it, at staggering rates. That's suicide, overdose, crime that they necessarily didn't need to be involved with, super risky behaviors that are often reckless, like reckless driving, which, Andrea, your sons are not driving yet, at least not on their own. And when they get there, reckless driving becomes a terrifying thing for a parent of boys. And that is, in a way, a death of despair, because they don't see the value of their lives enough to not go 125 miles an hour or whatever. So we want them to have good lives. Part of what you'll hear, if you pay attention to what's happening in the so-called manosphere, or even among thoughtful men, is that boys and young men are lonely. And part of the reason they're lonely is because, like Terry said, they were not taught to be the type of partner that women are interested in having. So it does all weave together, that loneliness and inability to be a quote unquote good partner, or just the partner that someone that they would like to have, ends up
let me
causing
just
them
jump
to
in
suffer.
with one of those amazing quotes that you and Christopher amassed. This is from Cameron, age 18. He says, "I keep a lot of feelings to myself because I don't really know how to talk about it. I'm going to get weepy. I don't really even know how to express it besides destroying stuff. I worry that one day I'll fully lose it and do something I'll really regret. My dad goes by the idea that men don't cry, and that's heavily affected me. I wish adults would support their children through hard times and helping them express their feelings." I'm like, who is this kid? And like, like we need him as a spokesperson. Oh, it just hit me so hard in the chest, recognizing how he singularly is giving voice to so many boys and young men who feel like they don't know how to really talk about it, and they feel uncomfortable. And I mean, so what do we do? I mean, is there a practical thing that parents can do to help young men like Cameron feel like they're not having to get to that point where they're literally breaking things or doing these dangerous things? What is the answer? Because, I mean, this is important to so many people.
It can feel so overwhelming. And a lot of people are identifying the problem with boys right now, and thank goodness, but there are very few solutions because this is a systematic problem that started with our great, 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 great grandfathers, right? But what we can control is our own homes. I can't go out and teach the neighbor's kid that his dad is doing masculinity wrong, nor would I want to. But in my home, I can create a space where I'm never going to mock my kids' feelings, where I am going to pause at 10 p.m. when I would really like to be watching the tornado documentary. And I am going to listen as he tells me something that seems meaningless because I think it will lead to something deeper. And I am going to understand that learning to communicate is a skill you learn. Just because he starts out not great at it doesn't mean he's not going to get better. Finally, if you have a husband, if you have a partner who's a male, if your father or your brother is around, and encouraging them to talk about how they feel and not just how they solved a problem can go a long way. Our husbands, dads, and brothers were taught that when a problem arises, they should say, well, I've got this problem and here's how I'm going to solve it, or let's talk about how I'm going to solve it. Or if you come to them with a problem, they'll say, here's how we're going to solve it. And they will generally not linger in the emotion and the experience. So we can practice with the men in our lives too, to help them get to a point that's going to help the boys do better. Like my husband, I don't know if I would say he even right now has the skills to do it, but he's working toward it for the boys to see him do. So he talks about something that happened as a kid, some random story when he was a kid or a teenager. I'll be like, that must have felt awful. And that little thing, he'll be like, well, it was fine. I got over it. But because he wants the boys to do better, he'll try to linger in that moment. And we can control that in our homes. And then whatever they have to put on, I mean, we all wear masks. You and I right now are talking in a way that would be different than if we were sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine. We're wearing a professional mask right now, right? We all wear masks. Masks are okay. We don't need our boys to go out in the world crying visibly about every little thing, unless it works for them. But in our homes, you can talk about anything.
Yeah, no, I think that, you did a really nice job of even, talking about sexual stuff, which we, hopefully we'll talk about in a little bit, normalizing those conversations and being the adult that your boys can talk to about this stuff. But I do want to underscore this whole business of validating the emotions and, oh, that sounds hard. And, oh, I'm sorry. You talk also about, when your child is upset, to help them get back into their body about where do you feel that, which is a great hack, right? Because it can be hard to talk about the emotions, but if you're talking about, oh, where do you feel that in your chest or what, it feels like it can be a hack to helping them get more in their body and not be spinning off out of control. And I feel like as a parent too, to use that as a hack when we're getting dysregulated and we get dysregulated because we're parents, it's almost like this hack that is like, let me slow down and ask that question rather than this spinning off into the oblivion.
Yeah,
Something
we learned
related,
that hack from Terry Real.
Oh, great.
In his book, I don't want to talk about it, which is like everyone who is all interested in what's going on with boys and men. It is incredible. It's a personal narrative, but it's also instructional and everything he's learned working with men as a therapist. But he has men in his practice who cannot access their emotions. And so instead he'll say, what are you feeling in your body? And oftentimes they feel it in their throat or their chest. And he will say, can you add a little, like he'll ask him, can you add a little space to that? And just making a little space for it. You are talking about something that they understand, which is physical pain or physical stress. And then you can move on from there, hopefully.
Yeah, no, it's a great hack. Let me ask you this. I mean, as a mom of 2 young men, what concerns you most when you think about your book? What do you want to apply to your sweet boys? Because let's face it, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and people may not like it. It's never been harder to be a boy or a young man, I think, than it is today. And I say that as a mom with 2 young boys, and yes, men still do rule the world, guys. But it's just more challenging. So what do you feel like? Oh, this is what I want for my boys.
I am so fortunate with my boys that they have been relatively easy later teenagers and young men. I would really like for them to be able to identify what they're feeling inside of themselves and to be able to know who they can trust to talk about those things. Because it is, as we were saying, you can make your home a safe place for them to talk about anything they want. But if they go out into a community where that can't happen, then they've still only got you when they're 30, 40, 50. If I could help my boys figure out what is this feeling? Where might it be coming from? And who can I process this with? If I can help them learn to do that and then figure out who are those people in their community, who are their friends, who are their fraternity brothers, who are their teammates, who are their castmates, who might be receptive to diving a little bit deeper and then pulling those people close and keeping them close. After college, it's very hard for men to find and maintain friendships. It used to happen at work. Everyone was at work. Like you're saying, it's a big struggle for a lot of people working remotely. With us gals, I can pick up my phone and call someone and just be like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what happened. And I feel less lonely, but we haven't taught our boys and men to
Joanna,
do that.
I love that. I feel it so deeply. And it reminds me of somebody that you and I both admire, the late, great Sue Johnson, founder of EFT, emotionally focused therapy. How she would always talk about how relationships grow each other. And, her work was principally romantic relationships, but listening to you talk about raising boys and young men who can tap into those feelings and are equipped to use those skills. And they are skills to bond with other men and women, and yes, of course, family and parents are important, but as they go out into the world and become more and more independent, to be endowed with that, to me is such a great gift. I mean, back to your point, it's a buffer to the loneliness epidemic. And I just think it is I've built a whole publishing business on love and relationships. So of course I'm biased, but it just feels like it is the ultimate empowerment, right? It is the ultimate empowerment to be able to equip our boys and young men with learning how to do that.
Well, like you said this might be controversial or unpopular. The boys are having a harder time than ever. Okay. The reason it's controversial is because we keep thinking that our boys are having the same experience that our husbands, fathers, and brothers had. And they're having a different experience because the world shifted in relationship to women and gender roles, but we raised our boys the same. Their coaches and their teachers and their principals and the other people, the clergy members, whoever it is in their lives, kept putting the same old story on our boys and Generation Z and the younger millennials, even though the whole world was different. So,
well, I would add, I think there's like a layer on this because it comes up a lot, particularly with my older son, Nicholas, just with the political influence and the media influence. I mean, my son, we're a liberal family, and at times his eyes roll to the back of his head when it comes to pronouns. And I'm like, oh, wait, I start to impose my own view. And I'm like, Andrea, be curious, right? And it does feel like there are, again, this is going to be probably unpopular, but I feel like there are liberal voices that are causing these kind of middle of the road young men to be like, what the ass? Like, don't impose that on me. There aren't 17. I mean, this is again coming from either my son or some of his friends. It's like, no, there aren't 17 genders, right? And we have these really vigorous debates. And I tend to be very liberal, very inclusive, and I have to stop myself. I try so hard not to impose my point of view. So I know my boys have good hearts, right? They're not bad kids. They've been raised well. To see them showing up differently than me in some of these ways that feel really fundamental. I mean, it's bad. So it's to your point. It's like, there is just this real tension right now, right? And that I just feel like being able to have these open conversations is helpful because, by the way, they're teaching me too, and I can get kind of fixated on my point of view. And it's really refreshing to have my point of view challenged by my high school, my freshman in high school telling me this is his point of view. And it's humbling to go, okay, Andrea, just shut the F up and just listen because you've raised a boy that is thoughtful. But his voice, I think, is very representative of a lot of voices that are like, enough already with these extreme liberal views.
So I have since a lot of times we talk about the problems, not you and me, but people at large, we talk about the problems and not the solutions. This is how I have had these types of conversations with my boys, specifically about gender, pronouns, sexual orientation, all these things, or even like, my kids are kind of jocks, which is shocking to me because I was such a goth girl. And they'll look at kids that or maybe look more punk, as we would have said, or whatever. And they're kind of, ooh. And my big thing I always say is, genuinely, let's talk about why this bothers you and how it affects you. Because it's kind of, and I've used this example with my boys, and these toys are probably outdated, but there was a time when everyone was playing with Ninjago from Lego, and then everyone switched to Beyblades. And my boys scorned the Ninjago kids. And I remember saying, why do you care what toys they play with? So I say, this is like Beyblade and Ninjago, which now they're old enough to see it doesn't matter. They're all toys. This is so silly. Why do you care? And it's hard to say that without scorn. It sounds like scornful. But how does this affect you if someone wants their pronoun to be they, them? And I'm genuinely curious because it doesn't
genuinely
bother
curious
me.
Is the key, right? That's it.
But where does it affect you? Do you get, for instance, my husband says sometimes he messes it up and then he feels embarrassed or ashamed. So I'll say, that's how dad has felt when he's made that mistake before. Is that where it's coming from? And then even if they can't answer it, they're thinking the next time they're starting to hear someone get mad about having to call someone they or whatever it is, they start to think, does this actually affect my life? Like, do I actually care about this? Does it bother me? I know I am he and him. How do I know that? It just getting curious, trying to do anything we can to remove any kind of sarcasm or scorn, which is hard for me because I want to be like, well, what do you care?
Oh, well, totally. I mean, and that's it. It's liberal moms that are type A Aries, both of us. It's like, like I said, I've been humbled at times when I expect my kid. I mean, here's just again going to out myself. I expect my kid to think like me. Hello, how freaking egoistic and dumb is that? And back to I always say my boys are my Buddhas. They teach me so much. I mean, not only do they show me my blind spots, but in these ways, when they're saying I have a different point of view than you do, Mom, you're right, Joanna. The answer is being deeply curious, and I think deep curiosity is one of the greatest transferable skills any human being can have. I actually did a reel on that the other day about curiosity at work. Like, curiosity is a freaking superpower. And if you can bring curiosity to any relationship or any job or any project, it is going to take you miles. And I think for you to be modeling that to, like you say, without criticism and without scorn, that becomes a skill that can be taught. Let me ask you, just taking this a little further, toxic masculinity and just what a cesspool. And oh my gosh, we can talk about some of the archetypes of pop culture that typify that so many young men and boys follow. Just talk, and this is the second chapter. It's important to you guys. Just talk a little bit about why this whole business of masculinity is so important for you and what you want parents to understand and communicate to their boys.
There's a misunderstanding about what people like me who've studied gender and written about gender for a long time want, in that they think that we being me or you or Christopher, whoever, wants one gender where everybody's the same. And in reality, or to say gender doesn't matter, gender is irrelevant. In reality, gender is a part of all of our identity, even if we don't notice it. And so masculinity matters, not just because we are trying to be women who come in and force masculinity to look more like femininity, but because masculinity is
say that again, because I feel like there is this issue with that masculinity gets messed up because it's like we want, what was that great quote? We want our boys to be more like girls, right? Have you found that in the research you've done, and why that presents that in itself is a cluster? I mean,
it's an interesting thing because once again, I always try to zoom out and go, in what ways might this be true? Like if I'm being accused, and by me, I mean feminists or gender aware people, if I'm being accused that we're trying to turn boys into little girls, my instinct is to be like, no, we're not. That's so stupid. But where are they getting that feeling from? Well, if we just look at schools, girls started outperforming boys in schools 15, 20 years ago. And every year that gap gets
in terms of grades,
more
right?
Grades, graduation rates, attending college, attending graduate school, going for high paying professional careers. It is startling. I don't know if you've had to look for a new doctor lately. It feels like almost all the doctors are women. I love it. It's great. But when you set up a school system where only one gender thrives, you're going to have people that fall behind. So then you're starting to say, well, here's how you act. You have to act in order to succeed. So in the 40s and 50s, if a girl wanted to succeed, she'd act like a boy because that was what the system was set up for. Right now, the system has somehow been set up for girls and women and a certain group of privileged boys. So there's real criticism. I mean, that's a real critique.
What do you think,
hear
though,
it.
What do you are those the sort of commonly known as soft skills? I mean, when it comes to what is causing that, is it just that these people, largely women, and like you say, some privileged, probably mostly privileged white young men, that it's like they're more compassionate, they're more empathetic, like they're doing these things that are, or they have these more feminine traits that are causing them to be more successful? Do you feel like that feminine, like this idea that there's this feminization of America, we being society is trying, and by the way, there's a lot of value in it. I mean, what were we just talking about? That for boys and men to be able to build strong, trusting bonds, that is about one of the most evolutionary, sound things you can do. I mean, to be in a tribe, right? I mean, that's how we get new jobs. Yeah. I mean, this is how we...
And the idea that even my grandfather's generation, those men were walking everywhere they went. If you think they weren't talking about how they were feeling, the idea that the man has to be so hard all the time and he can't have a close friend and he can't, that's new. That's new garbage. If you think the hunters and gatherers weren't talking about what was going on inside of their feelings as they were out for hours and hours tracking a buffalo or something, they were. This is not new. We are all meant to live in community. We are all meant to feel emotionally safe to some degree. We are all meant to lean on each other. Like you said, we are clans people. We are tribes people. We are people's people. So think like, well, men weren't designed to have deep conversations and talk about their feelings. Garbage. It's garbage. It's new garbage. So when we talk about toxic masculinity, and I know it's controversial, but we in our book don't use the term, because it sounds like we're saying masculinity is toxic. And in reality, masculinity is neutral, just like femininity is neutral. And we all express our gender in, different ways. I often wear giant jeans and big boots and a huge oversized t-shirt. That's my femininity, and it works for me. There's guys that love to get their eyebrows done and style their hair. And
well, there's a kid in the book who likes to run wearing a tank top, and his parents find that scandalous. Let me read another one of these really wonderful quotes that really got me. This is from Nadav, not sure
Nadav, I think, yeah.
Nadav, age 15. He says, masculinity presents an impossible dichotomy. Understanding and processing emotions while also being unable to feel and experience them. You're expected to know how to handle emotions in a way that doesn't involve talking about them or learning about them or showing them or experiencing them. It's very tiring. And again, when I think about the inextricable link between masculinity and emotional intelligence and emotional awareness and emotional expression, the more that those are the things that our boys and young men fundamentally, first and foremost, can feel comfortable with in themselves, and then have the skills, and again, they are skills, to talk and share them and not feel shame. Like Terry said, when you're vulnerable, it's not that you're more girly. In fact, I would contend it's a superpower, right? Because when you think of the most charismatic leaders, they are the one, oh my God, they're the ones that are able to foster those emotional connections with people and feel that sense of relatability. You don't do that through stoicism, right? And no knock against stoicism. It has its place, but it does feel to me like such an opportunity as parents to just to be so mindful of like you say, creating a safe home where these emotions are, and the things that we talk about are all on the table, in a way that can make it safe for our kids to feel and express themselves fully, and not kind of cut off those parts of themselves that feel uncomfortable. And we don't label them bad emotions, right? But it's like, they're like you're saying about masculinity and femininity. They're just emotions, right?
They're neutral.
What can we do with
neutral.
That?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they serve a purpose.
Yeah. And like to kind of counter some of the message that, it doesn't matter whether you're listening to liberals or you're listening to conservatives, everybody has these strict rules for what other people should be doing. And ultimately, no matter what political, and we wrote our book so that anybody from any political perspective could pick it up. It is a non-political book. It has our values in it, but it's not political. We're not trying to turn anyone into a feminist. I don't even know that the word feminist is in it, maybe more than once or twice. It's just that emotions are neutral. You need to be a safe place for your kid. And if you are forcing them to join your ideology, you are not a safe place for your kid, no matter what your ideology is. You have to help them develop a moral compass. And we give instructions for how to do that based on things experts said, how to develop a moral compass that can stay with them. It's based on your family's values, but something, if you just tell them, this is what you're going to believe, that's not a moral compass, that's following rules. And a moral compass is the thing that stays with them as they go to parties, as they go to college.
It's more truly internalized.
Yeah.
Versus kind of imposed. Mm-hmm.
But if you let them set it with no guidance, it's like anything else, they're not, then someone else is going to influence them. And that's where we talk about the manosphere and that series Adolescence and the ways in which we see, the rage and deaths of despair is because we're not guiding them.
Let's just talk about that for a couple minutes before we wrap up, because when I think I referenced it kind of obliquely a few minutes ago, when I think about those icons of toxic masculinity, what's the guy's name? Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson come up, some of these guys, and I'll share a quick story. I may have said it to you before, Joanna. I asked Nicholas a couple years ago who some of his heroes are, and he, out of the gate, Roger Federer. It's like, yep, like Nick is such a great tennis player. And then he said, Andrew Tate. And I almost fell out of my goddamn chair. And I was like, what? And, and he explained a couple things. I'm like, whoa. And I quickly went to my phone and Googled some of the things that, these are not deep fakes, people, that Andrew Tate said so violent against women, just so just cruel and unkind. And, when I think about back to how people like him, and it's not just him, there are, plenty of others that are preying on these vulnerabilities, that men feel because they just somehow don't feel like they're maybe connected to a broader tribe, or they feel vulnerable. So, you wrote so beautifully about how in the Times, there was a great, huge hit that went viral about how young men, particularly white young men, are being groomed and radicalized in, for, extreme organizations. But I would contend there is a radicalization happening from the manosphere.
Oh,
right. It is,
and it's full radicalization. It is. Yeah. And ultimately, it's partly because we've only talked about masculinity in the negative in the past. And it's a mistake.
Can
we
you
can't
say more about that?
unwind. Yeah.
We've only talked about masculinity, and in part, I'm like, answer the question, then I keep talking. But I feel like there has been so much of like backlash against the patriarchy. Men are to blame. Again, a lot of the liberal media is, I would contend, at fault. And that's part of the radicalization. It's like, well, if guys are the problem, then what the F? Like, we can't help it. We're guys. So talk more about how masculinity is deemed the problem.
We were so justifiably angry in the 90s and the 2000s and throughout the Me Too movement and after. We were angry because nobody was listening to the ways in which we suffered growing up, and the abuse and the marginalization. And
this was so Me Too meaning sexual predation, women being groped without wanting to.
Yeah. The world changed in 2000. What was it? 2016, 17 with that. And we were angry. Anger is so understandable. We can't go back and change anything that we've done in the past. But by only talking about masculinity in the negative, if so many young men and boys, all they heard was being a boy is bad. Being a man is bad. I'm destined to be a bad person.
And it's my fault.
My fault.
That blame and shame is, I think, and back to the point I made a little while ago, in a lot of ways, yes, men still rule the world 100%. You look at world leaders, you look at, the CEOs in Fortune 500, military, most positions of power are still occupied by men.
They won't for long.
And
that's not a snipe. It's a statement about what's happened to boys.
Only 5% of women are in Fortune 500 CEO roles, so I don't expect that to be 250 anytime soon, Joanna. But yeah, it's getting better, and it's a little spiky. Some ways, some places, it's much more, like you say, in higher education and so forth. In other areas, there is still a freaking glass ceiling.
The motherhood penalty is massive.
Massive. And so, I do have empathy for it feeling like, well, you were born at the penis, and so you
are part of the problem. And then on the other side, because I always try to look at how it's coming from all sides. It cannot be coming from just one side, or it wouldn't be this profound. On the other side, it was, this is what a man looks like. And it's Bear Grylls from Living in the Wild, or whatever that Nat Geo show was. It is like a big muscles, giant man with a giant beard. And he's heterosexual, and he's tough, and he can catch a bald eagle with his hands. And he would never fear anything. So that's what you're getting on one side. And then on the other side, you're getting like men are evil. And you've got every boy in the middle.
No, totally.
I can't catch a bald eagle with my bare hands. I don't know how to eat a salmon raw from a river.
I don't even have a flannel shirt.
I don't. It's like, where am I getting hiking boots? I live in the city. Whatever it is, they don't fit anywhere. And that's where what we call them ideological predators. That's where ideological predators step in and go, I got something to sell you.
Yeah.
So when I like that
term. I haven't heard it. Ideological predators.
When we get so polarized, everyone in the middle starts looking for answers. And so many of our boys were in the middle that they became prey. And Andrew Tate is such a great example, because all he was doing was selling young men a program. That's literally what it was. And he got rich off of them on top of all the criminal stuff. But my best practical tip when something like this comes up, Nicholas, I know you guys have talked about it, and he's getting older. He's so mature. He's so thoughtful. But for the person who's in that right now, Andrew Tate, you can kind of ignore because he's so extreme. But when they say Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson, these are nuanced people. And I know a lot of people are going to laugh when I say Joe Rogan is nuanced, but there are ways in which he can be very thoughtful and bring up points that are really interesting. So I always say, what's your favorite episode? When you get in the car, let's listen together. Yeah. Because you might be surprised that you've heard a million bad things about Joe Rogan, and you're going to listen to that interview and you might be like, I can see exactly why you get him. He's really funny and he's not afraid to say what he thinks. And then at that point,
he can be really thoughtful and he can ask really good questions. Now, he has enabled some of these predator types, but okay.
Yeah. I don't personally listen to the show, but you're not going to have a conversation with your kid about these manosphere guys unless you've listened and seen what they like about it. And then you can go back and forth and say, here's what I didn't like. I didn't like that he said this thing. And if I fact check it, it just doesn't seem accurate. And a lot of people are going to believe it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for parents to be spending time. I mean, there's this, I think there was a show we did a long time ago about like playing video games with your younger kid and, teen as well. But I think you're right, to meet them where they are, to understand their world a little bit better, to listen to the podcast, to watch the shows, right? So it's like, not only are you spending time, by the way, I got to share this really fun Seinfeld thing that you shared in the book that I'd never heard. This idea of quality time. Everybody wants quality time with their kid. I love how Jerry Seinfeld says, I don't want quality time. I want garbage time. I'm like, what's garbage time? I'll tell you guys, garbage time is when you're sitting there in the kitchen at 11 p.m. at night, you're eating cereal, nobody's even saying anything. And he's like, nothing is happening and everything is happening. So garbage time, people. Everybody spend garbage time with your kids. I'm totally going to do it, especially because Nicholas, and I'll tell you, I'm going to out myself a little bit. Nicholas is a cerealaholic. And so anytime he pours himself a cereal at 11 at night, I come sit next to him and I take the spoon. And he's like, I'm like, you're not going to finish that whole bowl. So I'm kind of a predator when it comes to eating my kid's cereal. Okay, last burning question for you. Ending on, I think, a high note, something really practical that I think a lot of people will want to know. Going back to the beginning of your book, your wonderful book, Joanna, how do you keep your cool when your kids are being unkind? What's just really good practical takeaway for us?
That is the hardest thing for me because I have you and I are both Aries. I have a very don't you dare kind of thing. And when that gets triggered, it is really hard. My biggest thing is you have to just accept that you're angry and tell them. That's my thing is I'll be like, that really hurt my feelings and I'm really mad right now. And just start with that. And then sometimes they'll go, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And sometimes they'll be like, well, and then you can go, and then you can model for them, I'm going to take a little break because I'm going to say something that I don't mean. And I'm going to come back in 20 minutes. And that's that classic couples therapy advice. It's really good for parents because our boys are not being taught that. And we teach them by leading and showing them that. And then as always, get curious, not furious. What's this about?
Well, I love it. Let's just rewind for a second that you own it. Because I want everybody to get this is, I think, just such a great little nugget. So practical, so actionable. So your kid, and never my kids, they would never do this. Ha ha. Something super rude, just like so dismissive, whatever. And what you're saying is the pro move is, oh my gosh, that just really hurts my feelings. That makes me mad. It's like, you just need that like nanosecond to say those words rather than blah, 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 how dare you? And I do so much for you, blah, 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 all the things that you want to say.
I do so
and
much for you. I should have a bumper sticker.
I'm going to commit myself. Like, never again, Andrea. Never say that shit again.
When you're not angry and you say it, you're like, oh my gosh. And
I know.
Like,
who does that? Or you hear somebody saying it and you're like, what's wrong with that bitch? And I'm like, shit, I should said it.
I don't know if couples therapists would agree that it's good to say, I'm so angry right now. But I think with kids, we have to show them that they affected us and they hurt us. Otherwise, imagine you're that like block of ice and you're like, oh, honey, I hear you saying that the pizza I bought tastes like shit. And I'm so sad you feel that way. Your kid's going to go out in the world and tell people that the food they cook tastes like shit. No, we're not doing that. Okay. That I got to tell you right now, bub, that hurts my feelings and I'm really angry right now and I need a little break because I want to talk to you about this. Give me like 20. And I think they need to know, like, when you love somebody, if you say something unkind, even if you mean it, the pizza might taste like shit. I don't know. That's
how you say it, right? That's okay. It's okay to say the pizza. I mean, I say this to my kids all the time. Say it to me in a way that I can hear it. And I ask them to do that with each other. It's like, I can take the negativity, I can take the criticism, I can take it all, but I have a hard time when it's being fired at me in a way that just feels really dysregulated.
And we have that sample conversation actually about pizza. Not that I know anything about kids that are angry about pizza. My kids eat both my boys eat a whole pizza every day. It's wild. But in that sample conversation, once they come back together and have the conversation, it turns out the kid had been asking for, Newman's Own brand. And the parent, in this case, it was the dad, kept buying whatever it was. And the kid was like, I'm not being heard. I don't like this one. And I'm asking you to hear me. I would really I get so hungry after practice. I need some, and I don't like this. And I'm feeling unheard. And all of a sudden it's hurt. It's hurt.
Yeah, no, it's a great example. And that's the curious versus furious. And let's face it, we as parents can be clueless, especially working parents. We're juggling a lot. We're in the sandwich. A lot of us are in the sandwich generation. And we just think, hey, it's like, I'm not a foodie. I don't care. I literally don't care what I eat. As long as you give me coffee, I'm fine. And so it's like, I impose my own, like, who cares? Just eat it. Which is also kind of obnoxious, right? It's like, Andrea, you're imposing your own belief. And meanwhile, like my younger son, totally a foodie. And even my, Nicholas, it's like, no, I want to eat something really good. I'm like, just eat the damn thing. They're like, but you're not hearing me, right? And it's just such a good reminder of like, let me not impose what is important or not important to me. Like, let me hear and see them. And like, I love what you were just saying about that example with the pizza. You're not hearing me.
You're not hearing me. And then when you hear, if they can get to the point, they may never get to the point where they're saying, you're not hearing me and it hurts. They may never say that, but they might say, I've told you this one I don't like. And I keep telling you and you keep buying it. If we can step out of that defensiveness, and that's why we have to take a break when we're angry and then say, it sounds like, and we've learned this from Harville Hendricks, who's interviewed for this book as well. It sounds like you're saying that I haven't been listening to you about the pizza, and I'm really sorry.
Well, and
I would be frustrated
sounds
too.
Like, it sounds like versus what I hear you saying. I mean, it's like you're using these words in a little bit of a softer way. And to your point about just overcoming that defensive tendency. And a lot of us were raised in ways that defensiveness is so hardwired, it is so unconscious, but it's our job as parents to become more mindful and back to the owning it. Oh shit, I just did that thing that I don't like. Let me own it and model what I want. Joanna, I've loved our conversation. I could talk to you for days. There are 14 chapters we didn't even get to.
We'll have to have a whole other one about sex ed because we'll have Christopher on with us because he teaches sex ed. So he's like,
there is so much around that and consent and it's just such a continuum. So yes, I would love to have you and Christopher. Congratulations on your beautiful new book. I am so excited for everybody watching the show, listening to get it. Yep. Talk to your boys. It's so empowering, you guys. All right. Thanks so much, Joanna. Congratulations.
Thank you for the time. I loved it.
Oh my God. I loved that show so much. First of all, I just loved Joanna. I hope you all did too. Her book, and we just literally skimmed the teeny tiniest top of the surface. It has so much research. It has so many actionable takeaways. And it's not heavy duty research where you're like having to read through a million footnotes. It's so accessible. So please do check out her amazing book. And honestly, do the takeaways or take it to heart when it comes to things like garbage time. Come on, Jerry Seinfeld is telling you to spend garbage time with your kid. You got to do it 11 o'clock. Eat that cereal together. Being curious, not furious, right? When they're rude, when they're confused, when they're tired. just meet them with an open heart, meet them with some compassion. It doesn't make you a doormat. You're not saying, oh yeah, that's okay. Just, smack me upside the head. It's like Joanna said, to say, hey, that really hurt, or whoa, let's take a pause there rather than freaking out. Honestly, I really hope you take these and so many of the other amazing takeaways from this episode to heart if you have boys. And honestly, if you're a parent of teenage or tween girls, I think a lot of the similar advice applies. As always, I love hearing from you. Please email me at gettingopen@yourtango.com. I love your comments wherever you watch your podcast, listen to your podcast, iHeart, Spotify, YouTube. Thank you for commenting. If you're not following the show, please do so. I am bringing it to you with my full heart, along with my amazing team. I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for tuning in.